Hey Hanyang, hello, I am the Dark Vein. Welcome back to another session of Confessions of a First Time Dungeon Master. As always, if you missed the last episode, I will put a link to that up for you right over here. You can go watch that, get caught up, and then come back and see what happened next. So this is now session 20, so let's get started. So in this session, it was kind of a chill session after the great big combat of last time. So most of the time was spent kind of just divvying up loot, kind of deciding what they were going to take, and then also just like travel and miscellaneous like quest wrap up things. So starting with a recap, basically they woke up in this house, and we just kind of recounted all of the things that they could take and wanted to take. Basically, they took pretty much anything magical. A couple of them took like some extra little interesting tidbits, like a journal. One of them took a severed head, and then another took some of like the witchy jewelry. And then, so I'm gonna recount actually what I gave them. I also realized as I was like listing these out last time that I had meant to give them like some of these things, but then I think the items are kind of minor enough that it was fine to kind of give these to them because I don't think it really affects like the overall party's power too much. So for the things that were in the cottage, in the hag's cottage, so I think the first thing I introduced was there's a very large cauldron that's filled with some sort of dark purpley liquid. And I said that there's roughly like 15 doses or 15 vials full of liquid left in there. So some of them took various amounts. I think Valkyrie took 5, Basil took 2, Ivar took 1, Umric took 1. Correction, Basil took 2 and then drank 2. So this potion is not really a very good potion. It's actually like the remains of like a botched batch of some elixir or potion that they don't know about that the hags were brewing. So I basically made it so if you drink it, you roll on a random table that I made. And so it can have any one of the following effects. 1 through 5, you dissolve into an anthropomorphic blob of swamp muck, which will require some form of restoration to reverse. It hasn't happened yet, thank goodness. So on a 6 to 45, which is pretty high odds, you become poisoned and you just like vomit on the spot and you gain a point of exhaustion as that it kind of like just fatigues your whole body. 46 to 50, which is again a pretty low chance, you start to grow roots and begin transforming into a living tree, which again takes some sort of like greater like restoration, non-petrification-y kind of a thing. 51 to 75, you were briefly transported to another plane for a time that I have not decided. 76 to 90, you grow either like a tail or hooves or antlers or mandibles or some sort of animal or insect part for a day. And then 91 to 100, you can communicate with all plant and animal life for the day, but the resulting din will can potentially like overpower your mind, so you have to roll a wisdom saving throw. If you fail, you gain a long-term madness. Long-term madness lasts for 1d10 by 10 hours. So, yes, it's not a great potion. I think a couple of the players mentioned that, oh, maybe you can try and replicate it, which is kind of not possible. Hello, geese. Anyways, so they took a few doses of that. When Basil drank it, he mostly rolled in the 6 to 45 range. I think he rolled like a 13 and then like a 21, and then so he had 2 points of exhaustion, and then when they were back at the keep, he drank a third dose, and that time he got like a 94 or something. So he was able to communicate with plants and animals, but he failed his wisdom save. So the long-term madness that he got was a he just really needed to count things, kind of like an OCD kind of thing. So he was just like counting coins, counting windows, counting like anything he could count. So that was pretty interesting. But so I'll get to that in a little bit. So the other kind of things that they got a gold necklace that allows you to cast the spell Tongues on yourself once per day. It must be worn to do so. It's also got a little bit of an extra feature that they don't know about, because I looked it up and some things aren't identifiable by magic and the spell identify. So I don't think it'll be that big a deal, but we'll see. And then they also took a small cat skull that has a candle in its head. Basically, what this candle does is when you light it, a pair of cat eyes kind of forms in the empty sockets, and then like a spectral little ghosty cat appears. It's more cosmetic than anything. I'll have to decide kind of if it can communicate or like do tasks for them. I might take like an animal handling check, but or like a few of them to like train it, since it is just kind of the spirit of a cat. It's an little like undead little ghostly figure. And then if you want to dismiss the cat, because you can't blow out the candle, you have to actually gouge out the eyes and the skull. So that's kind of and then what else is there? I think Ivar actually took the severed head that likes to eat flesh. Don't know why. There's a jar of candy with Tyrael's name on it. And the candy's Chaffee. And it was just so funny because he was like trying to like go through his backstory and figure out like what it meant or what it tied to. And I think he forgot that his character, he has a sister named Taffy, which is an interesting name for an elf. So I'm gonna say that it's like short for a name like Tafaelna or something. But okay. And then there were some various potions and elixirs. And this was kind of funny because I completely forgot that I had given them colors. And so, like, as we were playing, I was like, I think I remember this vaguely, but I didn't write down the colors. So I just started, like, maybe, like, questioning, kind of like, I think I said dark blue and gray and this. And they're like, yeah, you did. Yeah. And then there was one that was red with white spots. I'm like, oh, I gave them the same colors that I did before. Like, consistency. It's pretty good. So they don't know what they do yet, so I won't say it yet. But yeah, dark blue potion, a light gray one that's a red with white spots, and one like little tiny bit of like an ochre colored one. They also find a journal of a young woman. Umric leaves through it, and basically I tell them that it starts out pretty normal. Like she's a little girl talking about like her days and like what she does and stuff about like her family, and then like as she grows older and she hits like the teens, kind of, it starts to grow darker. She starts to talk about nightmares, starts to have like dark thoughts about like harming the people around her. So that's like she might be a changeling, which is a thing with hags and how they produce more hags. It's kind of grim actually. And then they also find a few things. They also find a rope of climbing, some pipes of haunting, like musical pipes that can cause fear, a bag of beans, candle of the deep, perfume, and a half-grown shrub of awakening. These are all items that can be found in the DM's guide. I try to pick things that were kind of thematic. I normally do like to make up most things in this campaign, but for magic items, I think it's pretty fun if they're like things that are in the D&D world that can work in the world that I kind of made, the homebrew world. and also because making custom items and importing them into like D&D Beyond is a lot of work. And then they find a few items on the hag's body as well. So they find a Quall's Feather token, which is a feather that can be placed on the ground. It sprouts a tree when you're outdoors. They also find 3 sending stones, which I think I'm going to modify a bit so each one has one use. You can send to one stone or both. And then also a perfume of bewitching. So 1 dose, which I think is you get advantage on like all charisma checks against humanoids for the next hour, something like that. So those are all the magical items I believe that they took, along with Basil's consumption of the weird purple liquid. And so now they're trying to find a way out. So the entryway that they came from has still kind of closed off. So they end up kind of searching around the house, and they find on the front of the house there's I tell them that there's a mirror, like a large kind of silver ornately carved or etched mirror with like a large, I think I said like aqua colored crystal at the base. And there's like an inscription around it in Sylvan, which none of them speak, but Basil has comprehend languages, so he casts that, and it says like look inside to find where you wish to be, basically. So they look in the mirror, and if they imagine a place that's in the swamp, the mirror image will kind of shimmer and change from their reflection into the place that they're imagining. They tried to imagine somewhere else, like they tried to imagine their house now, and this is Scorrian Keep. It will try to show them like the nearest place there. So I said that like, oh, do you see instead kind of like the outskirts of the marsh, kind of like as close to the keep as you could get. So eventually Umric is the one who's looking in, and he decides to go to Ristmore, which is the Firbolg village where they had previously been, and is probably the closest location that they all know to the Scorrian Keep. So he goes, and we had to do a little bit of retconning around here because I forgot that they have like the body double of the Viscount with them, who has never been to Ristmore. So feasibly, instead of all of them being able to go to Ristmore, since he doesn't know the location, after Umric goes through, he sends a message back to them telling them that that's kind of the way the mirror works. So Valhyrie decides to accompany the Viscount body double, whose name is now Herkeln, to Florinessa, and then they'll go from there. So one by one they all enter the mirror. So they like have to touch the crystal, and it took them a little bit to figure out because their characters aren't really versed in schools of magic, since none of them are wizards, and also out of game, like meta-wise, they're also not very familiar with like spells. I don't know, am I weird for just like reading through spells in my free time? Anyways, so I said that the mirror itself has a divination magical aura, which is the school of magic for scrying, and then the crystal has a aura of conjuration, which is the school of magic for teleportation. So it took them a bit to figure out, but eventually Umric touches the crystal, gets transported. He sends a message back telling them how it works, and eventually they're all able to go to like their respective spots. So it took some time for Valhyrie and the Viscount double to from Florinessa, since that's the closest place that the Viscount knows about, since he was teleported there. They talk to the Nettles also, and kind of tell them that everything is okay now, like the keepers are gone and weren't actually what they appear to be, which is good. And they also spread that with Ristmore as well, within Ristmore. So the whole swamp is caught up pretty much on what went down. Anyways, so once they all catch up, they borrow some kind of elk-like mounts from Ristmore and head back to the Scorrian Keep. So at the keep, basically some wrap up with kind of the Viscount and like wrapping up the quest, like letting the city guard and the Viscount know kind of what happened. They a couple of them did ask for additional payment, but I had said in the previous session that the diamonds are their reward for this additional bit. So they're kind of like out and about as like heroes of the city, kind of, but at the same time, not a lot of people know what like really happened or like the reason why this was happening. So I don't really think they've gotten to hero status yet at level 6, but they've certainly made some friends. I don't think they've made that many enemies, so I think they're okay. But anyways, so after tying things up with the Viscount, they're kind of like their like ledger of quests is kind of like empty. So they've pretty much done like what they've set out to do. So now it's kind of like, what do they want to do next? I don't know. They probably also don't know at all. But they head back to the house for a bit to kind of clean up, rest up. This is where Basil drinks his, I think, 3rd dose of the purple liquid and gets his long-term madness and like counting habit and just all his voices stuck in his head. So he stays shut up at his room and kind of turns into like an addict for this episode, which is funny. And then they decide to take like the magical items and go to Fernay's, because Fernay, it is late, it is like evening time, but Fernay is usually at her shop, whereas for the potions and elixirs they want to go to Liddy, but Liddy's shop is closed. So they go to Fernay's, and she's able to identify them. I kind of changed her a bit. Originally she was just a rogue class, but then I kind of wanted to, she's also like she deals a lot with like magical items, and I feel like it made sense for her to have magical powers. So now she's a multi-class rogue and blade singing wizard, which I think is awesome. So how her spells work is basically she has a lot of like tattoos that go like up her neck that are and like down to her shoulder and like part of her arm, and so like when she casts spells, like the certain parts of like the tattoo will light up. So little fun bit of aesthetic that I added to her. But she's able to identify a lot of the things. And then they kind of divvy it up, so I know who has what and I can add them to their character sheets, which is good. And see, they left some things with Fernay. So after they had defeated the hags, they like cut off their hands and cut off their heads. So Fernay is known to like collect skulls of things. I hadn't really thought it would be like humanoid or like, you know, like creature skulls, but here they go and give her three hag skulls, 3 hag heads. So I guess those are maybe a part of her collection now. I haven't really decided what she would do with them. Umric did cast Speak with Dead, kind of to show off and also to see if Fernay had anything to ask. I was not prepared for this. So I made up a couple questions on the spot. Fernay is not like super concerned with like the swamp. Like she likes to know things, but there's not a lot about the swamp that she's curious about, I would say. So, but she did ask, also hags, not very trustworthy, but she asked if they actually did have the ability to remove Basil's ring, to which didn't really get a clear answer. I think it's just kind of laughter. And then she also asked if Lake Illyria is more than it seems. And this is harkening back to way back before, like right when this quest started, and Morgal and Basil went to go look for information about like any lore about the swamp, and they came upon I think her name was Thiela in one of like the taverns, who told them a bit about some of the stories the swamp, one of them being about the 3 marsh keepers, and the second being about the history behind Lake Illyria, which is the lake at the middle of Flornissa and the White Castle Marshes. So basically the story that she told them was that there was like some sort of treasure hidden at the bottom still, and that a long time ago the lake was poisoned, and Lady Illyria, for whom the lake is named, kind of gave her life to purify this lake, and thus things could start growing again and people could make their home there. Um, there is maybe some truth to that story that may or may not tie into some people's backstories, but actually that might be a really cool thread to lead them down next. I might do that. But yeah, so they asked that. So I tried to, because I'm pretty sure they forgot. I'm trying to reopen that thread and see if they want to pull at it. And then I think the rest of the questions were kind of generic. They were all asked why the candy had his name on it, and it was to remind him of his sweet sister, of course. I didn't. Yeah, I as a DM, I didn't mean like anything by it. It was kind of just like a nudge, like, hey, don't forget you've got a sibling somewhere out there that may or may not be in trouble because you deserted your covenant. I need to bring covenants more in. There are covenants. I need to bring that more into my campaign. But anyways, so after the whole Speak with Dad thing, they leave the hag heads with her and also the changeling journal, which could be interesting. She might like try to find out who it is or like where or if it's real, because changelings turning into hags is not really a good thing. So we'll see. But yeah, so after that after identifying all the items, they divvy things up back at the house. And they try to go see Liddy, but Liddy is not at her shop. Relief efforts around the city have kind of died down, and people like the mushroom spore plague has kind of been mostly rooted out. Maybe just a few cases here and there. They do go to the Church of Trin, which is started remodeling, to cure Basil of his counting of his long-term madness, which is good. And then I think that's honestly about it. Mostly just like a lot of like role play and loot stuff, which is always fun. So now for the next session, I kind of said that it could be downtime because they don't really have an outgoing quest. Like Ferney always has work. I did kind of hint that with Ferney, there might be some stuff in the future, kind of, because like she mentioned that like the tunnels that are underneath the city are being closed off or like sealed at least, and that they had come up somewhere in the Draxel Mountains, which is to the west, near or in Osganthan. It's a place that's kind of like crawling with monsters and more like the monstrous races like kobolds and orcs and stuff like that, and occasionally some of like monstrosities from Niala's brood. And then she also mentioned that the country of Prill, which is where she is originally from and still is was like almost at war with Wolishk, which is a city in Osganthan. So Osganthan, the country of Osganthan, are followers of Loskin, which is the god of war, and the country of Prill. I'll put up the map again. Country of Prill are followers of Zenaria, the Dark Dancer, which is goddess of like assassins and trickery. Zenaria and Loskin are actually sisters, brother and sister. But Wolishk has been trying to move into Prill to take territory, basically, and so they were almost to war, but they were able to broker like a very uneasy kind of truce / ceasefire, which is kind of more like both of them kind of retreating to prepare to take the other down. So the people of Pro, who are very like roguelike and very stealthy, they are trying to kind of infiltrate Wallachk to see who is behind like this command and take them down, and then Wallachk is trying to like mobilize armies, and that's the reason why they came to the keep, was to try to make a pincer attack against Prill. So there's now an uneasy ceasefire, and she mentioned that they're trying to find a way to kind of end the conflict more resolutely in the future. So that might be a thing, I don't know, that they're interested in. Historically, our group has not been very interested in like more political things, but I think this could be like a cool kind of stealth mission that might lead to like a cool dungeon crawl. So it could have its merits. And then if they do want to keep helping Fernay. Otherwise, for them, it's kind of downtime. They can kind of choose what they want to do, which I'm a little bit leery of, because I think I've mentioned before in some episodes, they, like my party, I think has a hard time or like kind of deciding for themselves if they want to do something. Like if I want to get or craft a specific item, or if I want to go track down a certain person, or if I want to research a certain, well, they're pretty good with research, but if I want to find out more stuff about a covenant, or I like try to find someone who knows about my backstory, kind of like that, they tend to not really give me things, rather than like I kind of provide a few things and let them kind of pick and choose. So I'm kind of hoping that they'll take more of the reins and kind of direct where like the party as a whole or them individually want to go. Whether that's like backstory wise, or just like backstory wise, or just like quest wise, or like party relationship wise, or whatever, or like even from where they want to go in the world, whatever. So yeah, but some like backstory things and like downtime things and like new quests to give them. I've got a few ideas. One like more like a monster hunt, so it's like a rampaging beast has been upsetting trade lines so that are important for Selmot and the Sisgorian Keep. That might be a thing. Potentially some like nightmarish things with like Basil and the thing that's been going on with this ring. You might get like a vision to go to this place and do something like magic-y with Ivar, or I might pull the thread of like the lore of the lake and the of Tyrell, or Valhyrie want to pull that thread and figure out what the treasure is, or if they want to go, I don't know, there's a lot of things actually, so I'm gonna try to encourage them to discuss during like before next session. So yeah, that's about it. So I'm pretty excited to come up with some new ideas. I think I got a little bit tired of this quest line, the hag quest line midway through, just because I like expected it to be combat or like have a resolution much earlier than actually it was, which is like totally fine and like I should have expected, honestly. But because I think after a while there wasn't like anything new that I could give them, or anything that I could really prepare or like throw in to make things. So to me it didn't seem very interesting anymore, because like I had already given them pretty much everything that happened, even though they were still kind of discovering new stuff. I guess the Labrador family was kind of a new thing, but overall, yeah. Anyways, okay, I'm done rambling. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe for more. And subscribe for notifications when I put out new videos. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!